I'm David Holmgren. I'm co-originator of the permaculture concept, and I'd like to add my support to the seed freedom movement that's been initiated by Dr. Vandana Shiva. The issue of seeds and their importance to future food security cannot be understated, and the malevolence of the corporate control of seeds and the associated spread of genetically modified organisms to dominate conventional agriculture are huge issues. But I also want to, I suppose, point out that permaculture has been about creating the world we do want more than fighting against the world we don't want. And both these sides, these two sides of environmental activism, are essential. It's interesting, in the seeds issue, one of the really powerful ways that we can contribute to the creating the world we do want is, of course, through seed saving. And the irony is that this simple traditional activity, which all peoples have always done everywhere, is in danger of becoming potentially a criminal offence through many of the laws that are developing. But of course, we're not talking about doing that just as a dissident political statement. We are saving seeds because we literally want to grow them for our food supply and exchange them with other people. So seed saving networks around the world, a lot of it inspired by permaculture activism, have been part of this counter movement to this centralisation and corporate buy-up and control of the larger seed supply. At the next level down from saving seed and growing our own food, when we disconnect from the centralised, globalised food supply system and we start buying from local, mostly organic farmers, direct from the producer, and refuse to participate in the system that starts with Monsanto genetically modified products and ends with the monopoly supermarts, that we disconnect from that system, we are not just making a political statement, we are providing a very strong message by not participating. And it doesn't take the majority of the middle class people on the planet to disconnect from that system to give it a huge shock. It only takes 5 to 10% of people seriously disconnecting from that to give them a huge wake-up call. So these issues of greater self-reliance and the political fight against the bad things that are happening is very, very important. And people should never underestimate the effect of that when we are talking about food, because food is such a huge part of the global economy. It is so central to everything. So it's not like a boycott of one particular product, like Nike shoes. We are talking about a whole centralised food supply system which is essentially corrupted. And of course the parallel system that starts with home food production, with community supported agriculture, with small scale, local and bioregional organic suppliers, is the alternative to that. I suppose for many years, as someone who has focused on the positive environmentalism rather than oppositional environmentalism, I've nevertheless made a few observations about oppositional environmentalism in relation to various issues, including genetically modified organisms. And I think sometimes environmental activists have played into the story, the dominant mythology, how genetic engineering is going to bring about this great positive transformation in the world by just saying it's going to bring about a great negative transformation in the world. sometimes inadvertently that has played into the idea that these companies are all-powerful masters of the universe, and they have this great and powerful product which is going to transform the world. I think a better story to tell is how these corporations, and especially Monsanto, which is more committed to this pathway than any other global corporation, are trying to sell a defective product. Genetically modified organisms have not produced any of the things that were claimed repeatedly over the last 30 years that they would achieve. They are defective products. And corporations like Monsanto are desperate because they have invested so much in this pathway. Of course, a desperate corporation is a dangerous animal. I don't want to underestimate that, but I think it's important to recognise that they are selling a dud product. And of course, the real reason for selling this dud product is that it has this unique financial, legal, marketing advantage, is that you can put a label on a life form and say, we own that. So it's the grasp for the intellectual property rights to life which is the magnet that is drawing these corporations, not actually any productive advantages from the plants that they are breeding. Because in fact, the results of the last 30 years have shown that almost all of their things are a series of disasters. Now, to tell a little story about Monsanto that I don't think is well understood is that their greatest product, of course, is the Roundup ready crops, where herbicide can be sprayed over the crop because it is resistant to the herbicide. And most people imagine this was a result of some careful plan by the corporation. But in fact, it was a response to their own disasters. That disaster, of course, was the inevitable emergence of Roundup resistant weeds. Now, people imagine that these Roundup ready crops were a result of careful breeding in the laboratory that created this resistance to Roundup that they then put in their crops. I have another story about that, of how Monsanto stole that from a farmer in northern Victoria. Probably other places in the world too, but this particular farmer told me how he'd been using Roundup intensively for 16 years and then discovered ryegrass plants, big healthy ryegrass plants in his crops. And being the sort of farmer he was, he rang up Monsanto with a product complaint. This Roundup is supposed to kill everything. It doesn't. I have these ryegrass plants. They immediately put him onto head office in the United States, and head office said, don't do anything, we'll come to see you straight away. Very shortly he had a visit from 4 gentlemen from Monsanto, 2 plant geneticists and 2 lawyers. The plant geneticists took samples of the plant. The lawyers issued legal threats that if he did anything they would destroy him, and they took the plant material back to the United States. So this farmer in northern Victoria was one of the people who created Roundup resistance, as of course Monsanto's ecologists would have told their bosses would inevitably happen. And then the corporate strategy was, well, how do we turn this disaster into a product? And that's where Roundup ready crops came from. So I think this is a great story to tell about how these things are created out of one disaster after another, cascading down into catastrophe. And at least we can laugh that they are no more competent than any bungling fool that we would also laugh at.